Welcome back to another episode of Draft League History, the series where we look back on a Pokemon's history in the Draft League metagame and evaluate its roles and niches. Today we'll be looking at Gengar. The Gengar line is actually the first and only Ghost line from Generation 1, and one of the first two Pokemon seen by many in the opening screen of Red and Blue, battling it out with a Nidorino. Gengar is a fan favorite of many, including Ken Sugimori himself. As cool as Gengar is, will it stack up in the draft format? Big shout out to Muscle Tussle for suggesting this Pokemon last video's comments. Be sure to comment what Pokemon you want to see next, as well as like and subscribe. It only takes a second, it's completely free, and helps me out a ton and reach my goal of 1,000 subs. Alrighty, let's jump into it. Gengar is the definition of a glass cannon. It has a monster special attack stat in 130, allowing it to punch holes with its phenomenal stab combination in Ghost and Poison. On top of the Shadow Balls and Sludge Waves Gengar dishes out, it also has phenomenal coverage. It has the strong but volatile Focus Blast, which was an incredible tool to smash through the Dark and normal types attempting to check it. Dazzling Gleams for Dragons and Darks, and other great options in Thunderbolt, Energy Ball, Icy Wind, and Psychic, which can all be useful in different matchups. Gengar also has a great speed tier in 110, which allows it to get the jump on a majority of the slower ORAS metagame. These factors in conjunction with one another make Gengar a demonic offensive threat. On top of its great offensive move pool, Gengar has a ton of great support options as well. It can throw off Will-O-Wisp to burn and half the opposing Pokemon's attacks, Trick to cripple opposing bulky checks on the switch-in, as well as a fast taunt and Destiny Bond. When you couple these moves with Gengar's ability in Levitate, giving it an immunity to a type it should be weak to, and a great speed tier in 110, you have a Pokemon with a surprising amount of utility for a glass cannon. And being a glass cannon, Gengar's defenses are pretty terrible. With a stat spread of 60 HP, 60 defense, and 75 SPDF, there aren't many hits Gengar was going to survive. This issue in survivability was a huge hindrance for Gengar. This was most well exemplified in Gengar's crippling weakness to being Pursuit trapped. For those of you young bucks that only started playing competitive Pokemon in Generation 8, Pursuit is a base 40 power Dark move that doubles if the target Pokemon switches out, as well as still hitting them for the damage on the way out. With Gengar thriving off of a hit-and-run playstyle, as well as the fact that Dark types typically want to switch in on Gengar also have access to Pursuit typically, this method of eliminating Gengar was extremely reliable and difficult to play around for the Gengar player. One could always tech on Colbur Berries, Will-O-Wisp, or substitute sets, but these often came to the detriment of Gengar's matchup versus the rest of the team. Gengar loved having a good offensive fighting type as a partner, such as Mega Medicham, Mega Lopunny, Keldeo, and many more. These Pokemon bullied the fat normals and dark types that Gengar typically struggled to break through. Having a good knockoff switching was very important, as many offensive fightings didn't appreciate the chip or losing their items, so a good fairy like Clefable, Sylveon, or Togekiss is a great option as well. Overall, Gengar was a great offensive threat in ORAS, although it had some pretty exploitable weaknesses defensively that made it challenging to use efficiently. In Generation 7, Gengar saw its ability change from Levitate, which it always had, to Curse Body. This was detrimental to the little defensive utility that Gengar already had, as it now lost an immunity to a very scary type and a weakness at that. It gained access to Curse Body, which has a 30% chance to disable a move Gengar is hit by. This isn't an inherently bad ability, far from it in fact. Unfortunately, it's just not great on Gengar, as typically when Gengar is getting hit by a move, it's dying to that move. Losing Levitate was a tough blow to Gengar, as it lost some of the little defensive utility it had. In addition to the Gen 7 games that Gengar did appreciate was Z-moves. Z-moves were an incredible one-time nuke that Gengar loved abusing in certain matchups. Between its stabs, it could throw off incredibly powerful never-ending nightmares or acid downpours. Its phenomenal coverage could also be spec'd into as Z options. Titanium Z was particularly useful. Jacking up the power of Focus Blast for dark and normal type checks, while not having to risk a miss, was an incredibly valuable tool for Gengar to have. As for new partners, the pseudo-legendary of Lolo and Kommo-o was a great pairing with Gengar. It bullied the normal and dark type checks that Gengar didn't like, while Gengar could beat down the fairies and psychics for Kommo-o. Similar things could also be said about the Ultra Beast Buzzwole. You do have to take into account their shared psychic weakness though. Other than this buff and nerf, Gengar played largely the same in Generation 7. It was a strong glass cannon that was liable to get revenge or pursuit trapped if not positioned correctly. So all in all, Gengar's stint in Alola was a pretty successful one. On to the Galar region in Generation 8 next. Here, Gengar gained two great buffs. Remember that one move Pursuit? The one that trapped Gengar? And probably the most reliable way of removing it from play? Poof! Gone. Gengar decided to snap this move, essentially making Ghost the best offensive typing in the game. As without Pursuit to punish the clicking of a Ghost stab, it became incredibly drawback free. Gengar was obviously a huge benefactor of this, allowing it to play its hit and run playstyle much more effectively. It can now lock Shadow Ball without fear of being immediately trapped and revenged. This allowed Scarf sets to function as an even more reliable revenge killer, and Specs and Life Orb sets to walk, break, and destroy bulkier teams with no fear for its own safety. Gengar also gained access to Nasty Plot this generation. On paper, that seems great. A +2 to Gengar's monster special attack stat would make it a phenomenal sweeper, right? Well, it's not that simple. There are definitely matchups where Nasty Plot Gengar can shine, but in an overwhelming majority, the tried and true Specs, Scarf, and Life Orb sets are much more reliable. The reason for this is Gengar's pitiful aforementioned bulk, allowing it little to no setup opportunities, and its liability to get revenge killed by faster Pokemon and or Scarfers. Because of these huge defensive deficiencies, Gengar is much better off playing the Wall Breaker and Revenge Killer opposed to the Sweeper in most matchups. Still a cool buff, just not as useful as many people thought it would be. Gengar also gained arguably its best partners yet this generation, the Urshifu forms. The Single Strike form was a particularly formidable partner, as they broke for each other almost perfectly. Urshifu almost always forced in the fairies that allowed Gengar free KOs as well. To see this duo in action, check out our playlist of our most recent BBL Season 8 Championship run on the channel. Overall, Gengar is phenomenal at fulfilling its job in the Draft League format. It's fast and hits like an absolute truck, but is incredibly frail and exploitable from the defensive front. It isn't without its flaws, but it's a Pokemon that really rewards its player for proper offensive positioning. Definitely give Gengar a shot in your next league. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Draft League Study. Again, it's been a little bit, but I'm back on it. Getting a few more out. Please let me know what you want to see next in the comments below. I really appreciate you guys commenting. Let me know what you think of Gengar as well in the comments. If you tried it in a league, do you enjoy it? I know I personally love it. It's a Pokemon I didn't like at the beginning of the generation very much. I wasn't a big fan of it in Generation 7, and even early Generation 8, but then I used it more and more, and it's become one of my absolute favorites. So I'm glad that Muscle Tussle ended up suggesting this one. So if you have a fun one you want to see, definitely leave in the comments below. Drop a like if you enjoy, and sub if you're new. I'll see you guys next time. Later.